Hi everyone, my name is Andrea and I am the owner and lead designer of Sweet Details in Atlanta, Georgia. Today I have teamed up with CakeSafe to show you guys how to stack a cake and to keep it level. First thing I'm going to do is show you all the materials that we're going to use today. So these are the materials that I use when I stack my cakes. I am making a fondant cake today, a two-tiered fondant cake. So what I'm going to use is a small leveler. This is something you can find at CakeSafe or at the hardware store. I'm also using some candy melts, and this is what I'm going to use to adhere my tiers together. You can use a strong royal icing, or you can also use gunge, which is just melted down fondant with some water in it. That's if you're doing a fondant cake. If you're making a buttercream cake, you're going to want to use buttercream to adhere it. I'm also going to use an edible food marker to mark my dowels so I know where to cut them. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the dowels that I'm going to use. What I'm not going to use first, I'm going to talk about that and why I don't use them. So these are wooden dowels. I personally don't like them because I feel like they displace the cake too much. There's no center hole, so there's nowhere for that cake to go when you're pushing it down. So it's just going to go out. So I don't prefer using those. I do use them once I'm at the venue for my center dowel. I deliver all my cakes in CakeSafes, so they have that metal rod going through it. But once I get to the venue, I do put a wooden dowel down the center of all my cakes. Another dowel that I don't prefer to use is a bubble tea straw. I know a lot of people do like using them. I just find them a little bit flimsy. See how easily they bend? So I don't prefer using these for stacking cakes. If you do stack them, I would say don't go anything higher than a small two-tier with the bubble tea straws. The next, super strong. You see they are very hard to bend. They come in several sizes. The large size I like to do when use when I'm doing cakes like 3 or 4 tiers or more, and I use those on the bottom tiers, the biggest ones that are going to be holding the most weight. If I'm doing a small 2-tiered cake that's not going to be holding a lot of weight, I'll use those. The small ones, I just use scissors, but the large dowels, I find it easier if you use, this is a PVC cutter. You can get this from Home Depot or any hardware store, and it cuts your dowels nice and straight, and it's really easy to use. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my cake and get started showing you how I stack my cake. So I'm going to get started with stacking my cake. I am doing a 2-tiered marbled cake. It's for a small elopement today. But before you even get started stacking your cake, you want to take your leveler and make sure you level your table to make sure that the table is ready or is level. And then you also want to make sure that you level, if you're putting it on a turntable, level your turntable. And once your cake is on top, put the level on there. Make sure that your cake is level, which it is. So that's how you're going to get started. You're going to have to make sure that everything is level before you even start to stack your cake. Okay, so I am doing, this is a 7-inch round, and I'm going to put a 5-inch on top. So I've got a 5-inch cake card right here. I'm just going to place it in the middle where I'm going to want to put my cake. So make sure that you make sure it's even on all sides. Okay, that looks good to me. And I have a little Dresden tool that I'm going to use. You can use like a butter knife or something if it's a fondant cake. And just do a small little indentation of where you're going to put your cake. This is going to help you with making sure that your dowels stay underneath the cake that you're stacking on top, and also when you're putting your cake on to make sure that you get it centered, because that can be kind of hard sometimes when you're looking at it and you got to do it quickly. So you can see where my indentation is. That's where my cake is going to go on top. Okay, so now I am going to take thin ones because this is a small cake. And I am going to do 4 dowels in this cake. Because I am doing a 5-inch cake, I'm only going to do 4 dowels. And I always think of it kind of like a clock. So I'm going to do one at 12 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock straight across from it, one at 3 o'clock, and one at 9 o'clock. If your cake is bigger, then you're going to use more dowels. As a rule of thumb, I usually do about one less dowel than the size of the cake that's going on top. So I've got a 5-inch cake, I'm doing 4 dowels. If I had a 6-inch cake, I'd use 5 dowels. Once you get to the larger cake, you just want to make sure that you dowel your cake enough and it's not going to be, uneven. So make sure that you always have one dowel here and then another one straight across from it. You don't want to have this area be empty or else your cake could be uneven. All right, so I'm going to make some marks in my cake. I've already got a little pin in here. This is just to let me know that this is the front of the cake. So I'm going to put dowel there. I'm going to go straight across to 6 o'clock, put one there. I'm going to do about 3 o'clock. And what is this, 9 o'clock over here. Okay, and now I'm going to take my dowel and actually insert it in. Make sure you push straight down. Now I'm going to use my edible food pen, and I'm just going to mark on the dowel where I'm going to want to cut it. So it's right at the top of where that cake meets the dowel. I'm going to take it out and show you. Whenever you're taking dowels out of your cake, make sure you slowly twist up and take it out. So that's where I'm going to mark my, that's where I'm going to cut my dowels. And I'm just going to use scissors. Okay, so after you have marked that first one, you are now going to take your scissors and cut where that mark is. It's a little hard to do while I'm holding it up. Make sure you cut as straight as possible. Okay, and so you are going to use this original one that has the cake in it at the bottom to mark and cut all the rest of your dowels. Make sure you use this same one. That's going to ensure that you're not going to be, going a little bit off every time you cut your dowels. Now I'm going to show you how to mark them. Okay, I put them on a flat surface and I make sure that I push down, they're both touching the bottom. And I just take my pen again, my edible marker, and kind of make a mark right where I should cut the next dowel. So now I'm going to cut that next dowel. And then I'm going to put this one to the side. So I'm going to, again, use my original dowel and do the next one. And I'm going to do this until I have 4 dowels cut for my cake. Okay, so I've got all my dowels cut that I need for this cake, and I'm going to insert them. So you're going to take the original dowel that you cut, the first one, and insert it right back into that same hole that you put it in. I like to use another dowel to stick it straight down. It's easier to make sure that it goes straight down into the cake than using your finger. Okay, so I'm just going to go again over here. Once I get down in there, I'm going to use this dowel, push it down in. And if your cake is not like 100% level from the beginning, and you've got some dowels that are a little bit, looks like they're a little bit higher than your original, it'll be okay, because once you stack it, it's all going to be the same level, because your top cake is going to be sitting on these dowels, which are all the same height. Okay, my last one, I'm just going to grab another dowel that I have and push that down in. Okay, and so now, because this cake is fondant, I'm going to grab my candy melts to add my top tier. Like I said, if you were doing a buttercream cake, then you would grab some buttercream to adhere it. Okay, so I've got some candy melts here that are melted. I am going to take a little bit, making sure that I cover the dowels and have a little bit in between. You do not want to use too much candy melts. And you want to make sure that you have your other cake handy, because these will, set. It is chocolate. So that's about enough. If you put too much, it will seep out of the sides, and you don't want that to happen. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my other cake. I've got the front facing me. I'm going to decide which is the front, and I'm just going to place the cake on top, making sure you work quickly before the candy melts set. And having that marker already there helped me to make sure that I placed my cake pretty well the first time. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to check it to make sure that it's level. And yeah, it's perfect. And next I will show you just how to make sure that your sides, some tips on making sure that the sides aren't showing the cake cards through. Obviously, if you want to cut it with or cover it with ribbon, you can. But this is a modern style cake and we're not going to do any ribbon. We're just going to have the raw edge showing. Okay, so if you are trying to get a clean edge and you don't want to see that cake board or anything underneath, then this is what you're going to use. You're going to use your cake smoother and you're just going to gently push it down so that that board doesn't show. And if you had a, if you were using a buttercream cake, you know, I use a piping bag and then I kind of go through with a piping bag along this edge. And then I smooth out the edge so that you can't see the cake board through it either. Or of course, you can always do ribbon if that's what the client wants on their cake. That's it. Well, thank you for following along with me today to learn some tips and tricks. I hope that what I showed you helps you in getting perfectly straight and even and level cakes. Please be sure to follow CakeSafe for more videos like this of tips and tricks in the future. And if you'd like to follow along with some of my work, you can follow me at Sweet Details ATL. Bye.